Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Southside News TT. This evening, we continue our focus on the constituency life during lockdown. Joining us this afternoon is Superintendent Guy Allen, head of the Gender-Based Violence Unit and Child Protection Unit, and Parish Priest Father Cornelius Philip. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How it has been with you all during this lockdown?
Really hectic, really hectic. It's really, we are living in a really special and unprecedented time. So you have to think out the box about everything. Things are just different, and we have to adapt to, the situation in order to cope and to survive.
Are you feeling stressed or well by this situation, ma'am?
If I'm feeling,
Stressed, overwhelmed? And what advice you can give for some of our viewers at this time?
I wouldn't say I'm feeling stressed. It's just, it's a different time, and other buttons that were not being touched before in my brain are being touched now. You have to come up with innovative way to do policing, to ensure that the public is served and the police officers, our safety are not jeopardized during this time. Because we have to remember that we have a service to provide as well. So even though we're in a pandemic, we still are obligated to protect and serve.
I know that one of the questions you're asking us is there an increase in domestic violence during this pandemic?
We have two things happening in Trinidad at the same time. The Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith, and his executive, they launched the Gender-Based Violence Unit in January of 2020. And then we had the pandemic coming after. Now, with the launch of this unit, the officers operate differently. We operate with a higher level of confidentiality. We create the atmosphere where persons can feel comfortable to come forward and make reports. And then we had the pandemic that affects globally increased domestic violence throughout the entire world. So we have two dynamics happening at the moment. The launch of the unit that operates with this level of confidence that persons feel comfortable to come forward and make the reports. And then we have the shadow pandemic, right? So I'm not too certain which one is operating in Trinidad. The jury is still out on that.
Jury still. Reverend, how have you been dealing with this pandemic with your parishioners?
Well, I would like to think in terms of to following what the superintendent just said. It's like we can't do any long-term planning. You have to do short-term planning and think out of the box and be very creative. And also, because remember, at one time I am dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of different personalities, and everybody got different needs. So it's a way of trying to make everybody happy, but not to the expense of somebody else's happiness. And also, I have come to realize that even self-care is important for me as a person, because there is only one Father Cornelius Philip. And if I don't take care of me, I will be 6 feet deep, and I don't want to go there yet. So it's a whole thing about self-care, not only physical, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and trying to keep my life in a balance. And as Superintendent just said, I never knew I was so creative in terms of use of Zoom and even your platform this evening. So it has brought out a lot of creative uses from myself and other persons. So I see it in the lockdown as an opportunity to do things I wanted to do in terms of my studies, in terms of my prayer, in terms of reading a new book, getting to know friends. And might I say, the lockdown has allowed me to connect with friends I did not connect with for more than 20 years in my life. And it is amazing to see how I am connected with these persons, and we are now going back to memory lane. So I see it as an opportunity for greatness.
What about the social? You talk about you talk about your parent. What about the social aspect of this lockdown and how it's affecting your personal green economically, we should say?
Well, we as a, even on the spectrum of the Archdiocese of Port of Spain, and as is the case of other religious belief, but I can speak about the Catholic faith because I'm part of it. We have been doing a lot of feeding of the people, let no one go hungry. We have been providing lots of hampers and all kind of different support, financial and otherwise, for parishioners, because some people, they lost their jobs, some people were being laid off, and there are all kind of different things in terms of finances. And even as we speak, we still have in the lockdown our ongoing food drive. We give hampers, and we help people, and we also take care of some of the migrants as well. So we help people in order to make lives better. But I have come to realize that in the first lockdown, there was a greater need in our area for food and other things. But I'm waiting to see how the third one would play out. So we are bracing ourselves so as to be able to be ready to help everyone. And one of the things we did as a parish and as a church, we never touch religion. Whenever you come and you enter the gates, you need food, you need a hamper, you need some help, we help you because we're doing it. So that is in terms of the social. I think we've really been doing our best because we have the social action, and we have the parish in itself, and then we have those who take up the. We deal with a whole set of persons on a monthly basis, and I try to say to them that whatever needs they may have, don't be afraid to have a conversation with us, and we will see how we can take it from there. But it has been a great opportunity to help people on a social basis.
You say you give hampers, and so let me ask you, is the business community in Point Fortin is directly assisting the church, or you are getting funds out of the government grant for churches?
Right. Well, in terms of how it went for us, the government has assisted us, and we as the church, we use that the fund in order to provide hampers. And one of the things we also do from our own funds as parish and the funds of the Archdiocese, we partner with business the sectors like the Massey and so forth, so that we could get food cards and vouchers and stuff like that in order to allow the people to be fed and so forth. And obviously you will get a few discounts there and there. We are into the better deal. So wherever is the better deal, we find the better deal.
Mr. Allen, only last evening there was a domestic situation where unfortunately resulted in 2 persons died. Well, a murder died in Central. Is your unit at this time has done any specific education program during the lockdown? Because we understand that there is a lot of domestic violence during this lockdown period.
It's lovely that you asked that question. One of the things that the units, we are engaged in a lot of public sensitization and public awareness, because we want to bring the awareness of domestic violence to the general public. We want persons to understand that if you're in a domestic relationship and violence is occurring, we want persons to come forward and feel comfortable to make reports. Make your report, because now, because of the lockdown and the SOE, families who were not spending all this time together, they are required now to spend all this time together, and things could get a little agitated. The thing about it is the way in which you solve this agitation or these issues that arise within the family. Because like the old people would say, tongue and teeth would always meet. And we are not even speaking, we are speaking about all domestic relationship. It may be intimate partners as well as non-intimate partners. And we are engaged in a lot of sensitization throughout Trinidad. And just as Reverend said, innovative means. Who would have think that we would have been on a Zoom instead of a face-to-face, doing this program as we speak? So this same medium that we are using here, we have been using the same medium for a year and something now to bring the awareness to the public. We want persons to understand that conflict would happen. How you resolve those conflicts is what is important.
Somebody asked, is there a need for stringent domestic violence legislation?
Well, the thing about it is that recently the Domestic Violence Act was amended, and that amendment to that act, it has done a lot of good stuff that the general public is not paying attention to. And one thing we are in a lockdown. I am going to plead to John public. You can learn the laws of Trinidad. You don't have to be a lawyer or a police officer in order to, go on the website, Trinidad and Tobago laws, and you can just pull the Domestic Violence Act and you can read it for yourself and see. Because one of the major things that happened under that act, they have widened the scope of who can apply for a protection order. Even a child between the age of 16 to 18 can apply for a protection order against an offender. They have also widened the definition of emotional violence, because that is the hidden violence that we don't see, the outer marks, the bruises. Emotional violence that affects the emotion and the mind of an individual. This is what we call the psychological violence. To me, that is more dangerous than a kick and a cuff, a pinch. Violence of no time should be tolerated at all. None at all. None.
I hear you talk domestic violence, and some people believe domestic violence is husband and wife. So tell me, let me go, because you are child protection as well, so let's bring everything into it. Is there a lot of child abuse now, more so into this pandemic? Will it have to do with such?
Something we have to consider. We have not seen an increase per se in respect to child abuse. But what scares me, and I think about it every day, the mere fact that we are in a pandemic, sometimes I think, oh my God, some of these victims who are children, they are locked away with the perpetrators. Some of the reports that reach the police, it reaches the police through a teacher, a social worker, a parent, another parent, because sometimes children speak to their peers about things that are bothering them. Now that we are in a pandemic, let us say the perpetrator is a relative. The victim is at home with this perpetrator with no avenue, no place to report it. So that is one of my biggest fears as we speak. But we try to bring awareness. Children have access to devices. There is the child line, there is 999, 555, the online reporting that children can go secretly and make their reports and it would be attended to. So we don't want children to feel that because there's a lockdown, they must take what the perpetrator is doing to them.
Reverend, tell me something, Father. You had to deal with that situation as well in the parish of Point Fortin?
Well, I wouldn't go and say, well, you know about it. There is a propensity or there is a situation where a lot of domestic issues. But one of the things I come to realize is that during the lockdown, as officer said, you come to realize that even in families, a lot of issues in family life that may have not been addressed many years ago. Now you come to face with your reality, with persons not talking to each other, not having proper relationships, the improper way of reaching out and communicating with each other, the quarreling, and all these kind of things that. And as she spoke of the emotional abuse that some people experience in general as human beings. So it is something I have found myself where sometimes people come and they say, you know, I just want to clear my mind, you know. And it is my duty there to give them a listening ear, not judging their judgment, but it's to allow them to be able to get all that stuff, because none of us here on this platform have been through any pandemic. So it's a new phenomenon. But I would like to think that I agree with what officer said. Violent, domestic, otherwise is zero tolerance, and we don't this thing at all. But I would like to think that the lockdown, the COVID-19 has brought us a lot of things so that we need to reflect in terms of family life, in terms of our relationships, in terms of the young people, their mental health. Because the young people, one of the things they've done is they've got so used to the technology that the technology became their friend. But you can't speak to a computer 24/7. So how are we going to help the young people to build and foster holistic, given relationships? This is something we need to deal with.
We know, someone is asking, we know domestic violence happens with men. Have the police service had any opportunity to deal with that
Yes.
in the recent past during the lockdown? And the second question is, did you have to move any male to a safe house as a result of domestic violence?
A lot of people feel when you speak about domestic violence, you only speak about women and girls. Now, that is the narrative. That is the narrative that some organizations push. But for me and for the law, violence, whether it be to a child, a male, a female, violence is violence. At the gender-based violence unit, we create such an atmosphere where we are seeing men are feeling comfortable to come forward now and make reports. Remember, society, domestic violence on its whole, it was seen as a private matter. Victims of domestic violence were not encouraged to really go to a police station and make a report. And some police officers, even back then, treated domestic violence as a man and woman business, and I'm not getting in. But the thing is, when you fail as a police officer not to get into these conflicts of domestic violence, these things can lead to more serious things like murder. So the police has changed their approach now. Your matter would be investigated, whether you are a man, woman, or child. The perpetrator will be arrested and charged. We operate with a zero tolerance to domestic violence today. We have matters taken before the court where males were victims. And after we did the investigation, these men, they felt so happy with the outcome of the matter. They felt so happy with how they were treated. They were not demasculated or even felt like, okay, you know, you are less of a man to come and make a report that a woman is beating you up. We really do treat them, with respect and dignity. Another thing we have happening within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service as well is where we have that psychosocial support from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Victim and Witness Support Unit. They offer all survivors or victims counseling. So the atmosphere is there. Things are changing. I would not sit here and say that the organization is 100% where we want to be, but we are changing little by little.
So you cannot confirm if any male was moved to a safe house?
Another thing, the Office of the Prime Minister, as it is in Trinidad and Tobago, there are really no safe houses for men. But I'm on a committee with the Office of the Prime Minister, and we were told in the last meeting 2 weeks ago that there is a shelter for male victims. So things are happening in Trinidad and Tobago, but somehow the ills spread faster than the good. So there is actually a shelter for male victims of domestic violence now.
Father, let me go back to Father Cornelius. Earlier on, you say that you were dealing with some migrants. There's a school of thought, rightly or wrongly, that some of the migrants are responsible, particularly in the Southwest Peninsula, for the spread of the COVID-19 virus. How will you respond to that?
Well, in terms of the spread, everyone has the theory, but I am not a police officer, or neither do I do investigations in terms of immigration and stuff like that. So I cannot put up my hand and say, well, it's this person or that person who is doing the spread, because I am not an expert in this regard.
So you say that you can't confirm or deny that?
Well, the thing about it,
Could you go ahead?
Alexander, the thing about it is that one of the things I always say and I believe in, and this is the mindset of the church as well. When I think of one speaks about the mic, we all have everybody, wherever you go, we have a concern about a stranger. That is the natural thing. But think of the many years ago when our ancestors, Caribbean persons, went to the UK, they went to the USA, they went all over the world, and they made a name for themselves. So that is why, I respect the supreme dignity of everybody, and I try my best to see the face of God in every human being, because I have been a beneficiary of a migrant people. Like when my family went to the UK and went to the USA, that has helped me tremendously. So I think, it's not an easy subject to deal with, but I try not to point fingers at anybody.
Madam, you care to assist with that? I know that is your department, despite you a police officer. Despite it's not your thing, but a police officer is a police officer. How you do that?
Well, to answer that question, we need empirical data. And as it is for now, we have no empirical data. As this morning, I was listening to a particular TV program, and he brought up the same topic. And you know what was his response? How many migrants we have in the hospital? How many migrants we have tested positive for COVID? How many migrants are we seeing dying from COVID? So that alone should tell us something. Don't you think?
Interestingly, I have never thought of it, but getting out now is interesting. But we only hearing people dying. Some people, if they're not close to some people, you would not know. Government has not indicated, have not have a registry to say who died from COVID. Even people's family are not getting to see their remains
Mm-hmm.
during doing this. I can recall one particular family in the East West Corridor had to go before the court to view a body. So that is how it is. Um, I must say that we were
So
expecting the
you'd have to take father's advice, eh? Don't point fingers.
well, you know, he is a father, a man of the court, so we will have to be kind of with this answer because remember, in truth and in fact, the father always hold everything what people say in strict order of confidentiality. Would you agree, Father? So if he knows that, his duty is to be a humanity, more humanitarian part and a social worker than someone who would immediately go to the police service. And I believe he has been providing some counseling as well for them. You can tell us about that?
Counseling
For some of the migrants?
But no, I mean, in every part of Trinidad and Tobago, we have what they call a migrant ministry. I mean, we are not directly. I mean, I'm not doing counseling per se for them, but with the archdiocese and the United Nations, we do a lot of helping them out with stuff and whatever. That's the most we do. And there were those with legal status. We know them; they are legal, and they come to today. They are part of our parish community. They are very much involved. They help clean the church. They are very much involved in what we do as a parish, and we see them as family here. You know? So that's
Let me
that.
ask you,
Yeah,
you go ahead,
Alexander.
Father.
Well,
Yeah, you go ahead.
yeah. For one of the things, I in terms of I would have loved if we could officer and if could tie it up is just if we could highlight some of the the opportunities and some of the challenges and some of the things that we know that if it wasn't in that situation, we do not know what the world would have become. So it's like try to see like how we can pull out a few opportunities because we speak about life in lockdown. I would like to think that a lot of people have built a lot of positive relationships. A lot of persons have a lot of Facebook, WhatsApp groups, like your platform now. All these good things, informing people in a positive way. I also think that you, in your platform, you will be able to, as it would deal with misinformation and to provide people with truth to power, and also to give people an assurance that West Indian Caribbean people are very resilient and we can fight the pandemic together and come out victorious if we just be disciplined and do the right thing.
That's it. That's it.
You feel okay, so let's ask this what how you see life in your parish and with after lockdown.
Well, you see, as officer said, Alexander, to be honest with you, I get up every morning and I said, look, every day is a new opportunity. I am unable to have a lot of physical active persons because of the law and how we're supposed to social distance and lead by example. But I find myself even doing more ministering to persons via the social media platforms. We reach a lot of persons in different ways, and even as a parish, I am confident that some of the things that we are putting in place right now, life post lockdown, is going to be even better, but it will never be the same again. life will never be the same again. The way we do church, it cannot be the same way again. The way we worship cannot be the same way again. The way we interact with the parishioners, we cannot do it like the before. We cannot take nobody for granted. The way that we reached out to people, we cannot do it like before. We have to bring out the best in everybody and be Christ-like to everybody, everyone who would knock on our doors. The ministry is going to be a lot high-tech ministry that will entail bringing on board a lot of young, because Alexander, we have a lot of things negative to say about the young people, but I think within the pandemic, a lot of young persons have been helping parishes in even the state with IT and all kind of different things, because folks like us, we're not brought up into this kind of technological age, so they have an advantage. But the young people are shining brightly and doing a lot of great things via technology. Zoom parties, people have birthday party on Zoom. That means they don't go out, don't break curfew, don't break the law, but they do it virtually. You having virtual prayer meeting, you having virtual mass. Oh boy, I tell you, life has been Zoomified as far as I'm concerned.
And how you say life? You are saying life will not go back to the same.
Nah.
But there's a quarters that if we come, and I'm just not a medical practitioner, but it's a question being asked. If everybody being vaccinated, life could go back to same. Well, life will be able to go back,
Well, Alexander, when I said life will never be the same again, because it's simply because of the impact of this COVID-19. It has had an impact on economically, socially, emotionally, spiritually. So no matter what we say, it could never, we like to travel. Caribbean people love to travel. And I can tell you, for one time in my life, I don't even think of an airport. And one of the things, the reason why, Alexander, I am saying it will never be the same again, material things, our cars, our vehicles, our home, and all this kind of money and all these material things, you've come to realize at the snap of a finger, it is gone. And what is important is relationships. So people are more pro-relationship than they were back then. And it's all about relationships.
No, you continue, sir. Continue, Father.
Yeah. I think I tied it up. I do not know if Officer wants to come in on that point there. Relationships.
Father is so correct, because in this time of uncertainty, we should really focus on relationships. We shouldn't be seeing no spike in domestic violence.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. You understand? Because tomorrow you could wake up and find out that you have COVID, and that could be the end of you.
That's right.
So what we should be focusing now is our relationship with each other and try to live in peace and harmony. But that is not happening, People are being agitated. When we look at some of the reports that reach us at the gender base, I am amazed, Sometimes it's the wife in the kitchen preparing dinner, and the husband wants to pass. And the wife is of the opinion, from the time the husband see her come in, she should have moved aside. Simple as that, One lash in her head, or he takes up something in the kitchen and he hits her with it. And I am like, oh my God, this didn't have to reach here. So we have to look at the way we are socializing, and children are witnessing these kind of behavior. So what are we creating? Generational continuation of abuse. Children practice learned behavior, and we as adults must understand that. Mm-hmm. Children are sponge.
Yeah. Yes.
They don't do what we say, they do what we do.
Mm.
You understand? So we really have to do some introspection and look at our operations during this pandemic. Because life after the pandemic, it could be something else if we don't take stance now.
Yeah.
So according to Father, it would never be the same.
Before we came on air, I had a brief chat with Father. Father, I want to know if we could go into depth with the question I asked. I know last time I had a heated discussion with someone who was saying that
Oh,
I
yeah.
know you're not a medical practitioner once again, but it's a spiritual aspect of it.
Yes.
They say it is the new world order, and taking the vaccine, it is not righteous. I just want you to respond to that in a
Ale-
spiritual aspect.
Brother Alexander, I am encouraging the whole world to go and get the jab of hope, the jab of a second chance, the jab of a fight against a vaccine, against a virus that we do not know of. We are about saving lives. It's not about conspiracy or theories and whatever. The vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, and believe you me, I have got my first jab and I am alive and well. And I am saying to the whole world, Alexander, if you've not gotten yours, officer, if you've not got, I do not know, don't tell me. But I am saying, listen, everybody should be vaccinated. And if you have a question about the vaccine, you ask the medical experts and allow them to clear the air. But right now, in the church, as far as we are concerned, in the Catholic Church with Archbishop Jason, all of us, we are pro-vaccine. We are saying to everybody, get vaccinated. And you know what? If they call your name tomorrow, run to the health center, get your jab. It's a jab of hope. It's a job of a second chance, an opportunity to stay alive. We want to stay alive.
There is a question coming here directly from Father. You can tell us, one of our listeners or viewers would like to know how the Catholic Church is preparing to reach out to senior citizens who will not be able.
Right. Well,
who will not be able to go to the Catholic Church or feel like to go to church or whatever.
Right. So one of the things we have done, we did in the before the our third week now, is that we literally used to take the stuff and try to be of more assistance to the senior citizens, like to take the Catholic news and things like that to keep them in the loop. But one of the things I am doing right now is that I realize social platforms are being used, so I try my best to do recordings, voice notes, and messages. So I send it to them, connect with them. So I have told the parishioners that if there is any senior citizen or young person in any situation, they could call me at any time, because my duty is to take care of my flock. Because senior citizens, I think a lot of them are going through what they call loneliness. They've been alone, and some of them are afraid. So I think that they need a lot of comfort, and whatever we can do as church to bring them some comfort and joy and reassurance, we are willing to do the same.
One other person is asking, are you still going out to give communion in spite of the lockdown?
Well, you see, things have changed a little bit because the government has said we have to stay indoors. First of all, the church is very law abiding. We are rolling with the government and we are rolling with the law, the protective services. So it would be also irresponsible of me for me to be going out there, risking my own life and putting somebody else at risk, because now the COVID-19 is at a community spread. You do not know who has it, who doesn't have it. So for the meantime, a lot of things virtually, asking the people when things get better. But if there is an emergency, I mean, somebody's, whatever it is, there are things for that. But you can't be moving around from house to house and then let's say I get COVID-19. I don't want to be a martyr that soon.
As I promised, I will ask the question some people ask. Superintendent Allen, is an economic situation good cause of domestic violence at this point in time?
Of course. Financial abuse? But the thing about it, when it comes to financial, the emotional, there's even, I'm reading about spiritual abuse as well now. Yeah, those things are wrong. And the court will take cognizance of those things when they're issuing protection orders. But when it comes to a criminal charge, we look more at the psychological abuse as well as the physical abuse. But the other abuses, they are only taken into cognizance when they're issuing protection orders for applicants.
And some people, well, in some quarters always say that the protection orders are sometimes weak.
A piece of paper.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. But you know what I tell persons? In 2020, and condolences to their families, how many women that were killed by their intimate partners had protection orders in effect? How many? I am saying the protection order is there. It's a mechanism that is in place. Let us use it. There is an electronic monitoring device. That act has been passed, and magistrates and judges can put this added feature to work alongside with the protection order. So I think we need as a society to get away from saying, oh, the protection order is just a piece of paper and it protects no one. It's a mechanism there, use it.
Someone is saying domestic violence is always prevalent in our society. There needs to be a combination between the police, social services, social service division to avoid that.
That's a brilliant contribution, because you know what? In order for us to get rid of this ugly scourge in society, we have to approach it in a multifaceted way. We have to, it's no longer a police business. Because we have, let me tell you something, we have instances where survivors would come to the police. And let us face the reality. We don't want people to judge the survivor or judge the victim. And in most occasions, we have families and friends who judge victims. Girl, you stupid, you taking that from him? That is something that we need to be careful of. Victims come to a family member or friend for advice, you listen. Believe that person. Because sometimes all that victim or survivor wants is for the abuse to stop. And you just coming to make a report to the police, that is not the be it and end it all. You have to cooperate with the investigation, because we want to take the matter to the court. So we need to get statements from you. We visit the scene, we collect evidence. Without those things, we cannot go to the courts. And we have a lot of reports where survivors and victims, they do not cooperate with the investigation. And all they want us to do is warn the perpetrator. Warning is not acceptable in law, because you could warn somebody today, and if that person did not seek help or guidance or counseling, that person would never change. And that is just the reality that we need to face. Perpetrators of domestic violence must be held accountable. And in order for them to be held accountable, they must be taken before the courts of Trinidad and Tobago. in order to be dealt with before the law. And we are encouraging persons to come forward. We are encouraging family members, support your family. Far too often you hear people telling people, sometimes you're looking for a safe place for survivors and victims. No, don't come by me. And they hang up the phone on their survivor, on the survivor who is their family. Who does this survivor turn to? And that is why we did a course, our persons are trained in the gender base, you know. We were exposed to a course that they say, that the topic was, why do victims stay? Why do women stay? And there are a lot of reasons why women stay. Financial, emotional. You remember there is something that they call gaslighting and narcissistic behavior. The perpetrator is not always violent, you know. There is a honeymoon stage. Domestic violence is cyclic in nature. It has the honeymoon stage, and the stage where the tension starts to build, then the violence, and then it goes back again to the honeymoon. And we are human beings. We are human beings. We love that love. We love friendship. So even though bad is happening, sometimes we tend to keep in our mind about the good times. And we don't want the perpetrator to be in trouble with the law or to be charged or taken into a cell. But they must be held accountable for us to see change behavior. And that is why we keep, you see, programs like these, I welcome this, to bring awareness so persons could understand where they can go, where they can seek help. Families could understand if they have an abusive friend or family, how to operate. Believe your family, believe your friend, and help them.
Let me put you on the spot, Superintendent. This is a common statement in court, in some quarters, and particularly in my quarter. Police officers always attempt to put themselves a victim when a report is made in a station.
They put what?
Always attempt to get into a relationship with a victim when a report is made at a station.
Well, here, Mr. Alexander, I have never seen it happen before, but I would not sit here deceitfully and say that it's not happening. What I could tell you is that I've never seen it happen before. But hear what? I want to tell John Public, if that happens, you can report that police officer. Police officers are not supposed to do that at all. We are held at a higher standard, and we are supposed to operate with professionalism and the highest of integrity. So that is unbecoming. And it would not be acceptable nor tolerated.
Are there a lot of, well, I'm asking the questions as they come, ma'am. Are there a lot of domestic violence between police officers and their spouse? I have the serving members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and their spouse?
Well, to say, if we look at that, the statistics doesn't show that. But what I can tell you, whether you're a police officer, a sanitation worker, a father, a priest, a telephone, a TV announcer, radio announcer, and a report is made against you, the matter would be investigated. And domestic violence doesn't have a face. Domestic violence doesn't have a face. Yeah? Some persons are really nice to John Public. And if you see them at home, they are monsters.
See me and live with me is too different me?
I didn't hear you.
See me and come live with me is too different?
You are so correct. But rest assured, once your matter is reported, it would be investigated. And charges would be laid once there's evidence.
I don't know if I asked Reverend Father Cornelius, I couldn't recall if I asked you that. What are the role that your Catholic Church is playing in domestic violence? I couldn't remember if I asked that. What is the role? What role
yes,
in domestic violence?
Well, at the end of the day, everything the officer said, that's exactly our stance on domestic violence. Zero tolerance. And do not accept it, do not promote it, We totally condemn it, and we will do whatever we have to do in order that our world becomes domestic violence free, or we become non-compliant to domestic violence. Because you see, at the end of the day, if there is a domestic violence in the family and some bad things would happen, like a murder or something like that, it's a toll on the ministers as well. It takes a toll. It's not only the family suffering, when the officers in the investigation, they're under pressure. The religious minister is under pressure. During the funeral, there is so much pressure going through all these things. And so we want to say to the whole world that we are saying that domestic violence at any level is unacceptable, and our community must take that stance as well.
Well, we are almost there and out of time. Let me thank you all for the thing. I must say we were expecting the president of Twitter. She did confirm she will appear on this program. However, she did not appear, and we are still thankful for our guests. Father Cornelius, you have 1 minute out. Give us your closing remarks.
My closing remark is this. I am saying that the COVID-19, although it has brought out the worst in us, to a certain extent, but you have seen cooperation, you have seen goodwill, you've seen people sharing with each other, you've seen people reaching out, you've been seeing doctors, nurses, people doing the extra. You are seeing a deep love and appreciation for the human person. You are seeing people showing respect, and no one should go hungry. The faith is being proclaimed. Jesus Christ is being proclaimed even louder. People are becoming more holy, more prayerful. And believe you me, there are lots of good things from the government to the last man on the street happening in Trinidad and Tobago that we need to write about. And instead of promoting the negative news, we need to promote the good news, because a lot of good things are happening in Trinidad and Tobago that's not happening elsewhere around the world.
Superintendent Guyalin, you have the last say.
Thank you. Not ladies first this time. Ladies. Yes, I want to say domestic violence is an ugly scourge in society. We in Trinidad and Tobago, we know about love, we know about peace, we know about harmony. We know from the pledge, we know Our Father, we know we have different religions. We preach religions, we preach spirituality. I am asking this lockdown, the entire world is looking at us. Don't let the world see our ugly. Let us try our best to make Trinidad and Tobago a domestic violence free society. Another thing I'm asking, we are in a lockdown, we are in a pandemic. The nurses are overworked, the doctors are overworked, the police officers are overworked, everybody in the essential service, we are overworked. And what I'm saying is that we are all doing this so that we can come out safe and things can get back to some semblance of normalcy. I am asking persons to stop being smart with stupidness. Stop being smart with stupidness. We have a curfew between 9 to 5. Abide by the curfew. Don't let police officers have to reach you outside here. And you have to come up with a stupid excuse as to why you are outside. You are not an essential. And even the persons who are in essentials, I am asking them and all to abide by the curfew. If you are not going to and from work, try your best not to be on the road. Because the big thing about this curfew is to curb the movements, so that you would limit the transference of this silent disease that we don't know. So I'm asking, please let us all abide by the law so that we can come out and life can be normal again.
Thank you very much. I wouldn't say silent, but I would say a dreaded disease that we cannot see, we cannot feel, but we will know when we have it. Superintendent Guyalin, Father Cornelius, let me thank you very much for gracing us with your presence and sharing your information. I trust that we can call on you again to share this information once again in any time. And thank you for joining us, and do have a good and safe night. Remember to wash your hands, wear your mask, and social distancing. Thank you all,
That's
and good
right.
evening.
Cheers. All right. Cheers.